Hello and welcome. My name is Shannon. My pronouns are they, them. And tonight we have a restorative practice. And it's a little different than some of the ones we've done before. So today we will start with our grounding, a short body scan meditation. Excuse me. And then we'll move into pranayama or breath work, just a short practice to help us kind of uh, ground, find ourselves in the body. Um, and then we will move into restorative asana. And while we're in the asana, we'll recall certain things that bring us joy. So it'll be different for everyone, but we'll be able to kind of visualize those things, put ourselves in the place where kind of mentally we're in the presence of those things. And we'll take some time to notice what we're feeling in the body as part of that process. Um, so, this is for me a practice that's been really helpful as someone who has spent a lot of my life actively disconnecting from my body. I think that for a lot of us in larger bodies, a lot of fat folks, we generally tend to think of ourselves as not our body because our whole lives, most of our life at least, we've been told that there's something wrong with our bodies. So we kind of disconnect. And of course, I don't speak for everyone, but I know that this is um, not an uncommon experience for folks who are fat, but also those of us who deal with pain or disability or chronic illness sometimes, because there's so much going on in our bodies to get a break. Sometimes we start to disconnect. And so for me, it's been empowering to come back to my body, to see it as an ally instead of something I'm fighting against. And part of that process of reconnection was noticing like the connection between my mind and my emotional state and my body. And so, of course, we have things like a sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous response, right? And these are things that we can't really control. But we also have reactions to our emotional state. We have reactions to thoughts. And so, for me, noticing those helped in several ways. Again, it helped me kind of remember that my body is part of my experience here on this planet, in this world. Um, but it's also helped me remember that sometimes my body is aware of how I'm feeling before my brain knows how I'm feeling. And if I can notice what's happening in my body and understand how that's connected to my emotional state, it can help me remain calm in situations where maybe it's hard to remain calm. It can help me notice when I'm enjoying something, which sounds strange to say, but when you become disconnected, you don't necessarily notice what you enjoy and what you don't enjoy. There's just kind of what you think you should enjoy and not enjoy. And I feel like joy is one of the emotions that is a little easier to sit with. So that's where we're starting. This is going to be part of a series, not all in a row. We're going to do like one a month for a while because it is a bit of work. It's a bit of emotional labor sometimes. This class, I don't think, will probably be as much because it is probably the emotion that most of us are most connected to already. But there's that. And if you're interested, I do have on the Patreon on a public post a series of prompts if you like journaling in a book, or also a series of worksheets, which are based on the prompts. If you like filling out worksheets as a way to kind of reflect on the experience. So feel free to check those out. The links down where the link is. Um, so we're going to start today with a bit of grounding. And I do want to remind y'all that if at any point something feels uncomfortable, you can simply release the thought, release the idea, and just allow yourself to rest in the posture as best you can. And if the posture isn't working for you, it's distracting, you can come into anything else that feels comfortable for you, or you can go ahead and type in the chat and I will follow up there. So I'm going to go ahead and have a seat. If we are, I'm going to double check right now, make sure everything's running properly. Yay. If for our grounding, we can come into either a reclined position with maybe a bolster beneath the knees, Shavasana or corpse pose. But if there's another position that is more comfortable for you, please come into that as well. You can be seated, anything that feels good. But we might have the bolster beneath the knees. We might be reclining on the mat, maybe a blanket over us. If we have an eye pillow, we can use that. We have our usual props for today, 2 blocks, a few blankets, a bolster, or we can have a ton of bed pillows, maybe some throw pillows, some books, and some blankets, anything that works. If we're sitting in a chair today, we might find a nice comfortable position, maybe with the feet against the floor if that feels good, or we can have them up in front of us on a second chair or an ottoman or a table. And you might want to relax back against the back of the chair, against the wall, if that's accessible to us, and find a nice, comfortable position. We might start with a few deep breaths, maybe in through the nose and out through the mouth, maybe releasing with a sigh or vocalization. Doing our best to let go of the day so far. Giving ourselves the time that we need to come into this space. Allowing ourselves to transition. It might be helpful to notice the space that we're in. Maybe notice the sounds in the room. I know I'm in the city, so through your speaker, you might hear radios, you might hear car horns, but make note of what's in your space too, so that you're aware and things don't surprise you. We might take a moment to notice the sensation of our body in this space, if there's anything we can do to make ourselves a little bit more comfortable. Whether it's smoothing down a piece of clothing or making sure that our feet are covered if they're chilly or anything else. And if we haven't already, we might close the eyes or find a soft gaze if that's more comfortable. And as we allow ourselves to relax back, we might bring our attention back to the breath, finding our natural rhythm, whatever that looks like for us. Noticing the inhale and exhale. We might follow that passage of air in through the nose or mouth, down through the throat, into the heart space, the belly. On our exhale, we might feel the belly soften, the ribs deflate, the heart space lower, and warm breath coming out through the nose or mouth. We might release our awareness from the breath and let it settle in the body. We might notice any areas that we need to be a little bit more careful, a little bit more comfortable with. And again, make those adjustments throughout the practice as we need. We might begin to notice where the body's making contact with the mat, the props, the floor, and notice the sensations in these areas. letting ourselves melt down into these spaces, letting ourselves be held by the mat, by the props, by the earth, no matter how far beneath us the earth is today. Maybe on our next exhale, kind of consciously allowing ourselves to be heavy, letting the shoulders fall away from the ears, letting the arms be heavy, the legs, the feet. And notice the support of what's beneath us. I'm going to take a moment for a light body scan, just to let us know where we're starting, to be aware of what we're feeling in the body. And as I mentioned the areas, we might bring our attention to those areas. And if there's any area that feels uncomfortable to focus on, we can go ahead and skip that area and rejoin when we're ready. So we're going to start at the feet today, noticing the toes and the soles of the feet. We might notice if we feel buzzing, a difference in temperature, a lack of sensation. On our exhale, we'll release the sole and move into the foot itself, maybe the heel and ankle as well. Noticing. And on our exhale, releasing. Moving into up the ankle and into the calf. So maybe you're noticing the top of the calf, the back, the sides. Maybe the sensation of clothing or a blanket or the mat beneath us. When we're ready, releasing. Noticing the upper leg, maybe the knee, the thighs, the top, the bottom of the thighs. Moving into the glutes and bum, the hips and pelvis. When we're ready, releasing, moving upward into the torso, noticing the back, from the lumbar, the mid-back, up towards the shoulders. We might let our awareness wrap around the sides of the body, noticing the belly, the ribs, the heart space. When we're ready, letting go and moving into the shoulders, noticing the tops of the shoulders, the shoulder blades. When we're ready, releasing, noticing the arms, the upper arm, the elbow, the forearm. Letting go with the exhale, bringing awareness to the hands. Notice the wrist, the backs of the hands, the thumb, the fingers. Noticing the palm. On our exhale, releasing the hands and arms, bringing our awareness into the neck and throat. Maybe along the back of the head into the scalp. Moving into the ears, the cheeks, the jaw, the lips, the nose, the eyes, the forehead. Up to the crown of the head. Maybe on our inhale, we'll widen our awareness to the whole body, noticing how the whole body feels together. Then on our exhale, letting go. Allowing ourselves to continue to breathe in a way that feels comfortable for the next few minutes. And we have the option to breathe in whatever fashion suits us. Or if we like, we can join in with a bit of pranayama or breath work. We'll be practicing Sami Vritti or equal respiration. So we can do that from the position we're in. If you're more comfortable doing it seated, you can go ahead, roll onto the left or right side, press up to seated, only if that's what feels good for you. You can also practice this reclined. And from wherever we are, we might, if it feels good, shift the breath in and out through the nose. If we're congested, don't worry, you can breathe through the mouth as well. And then if that feels good, we might also see if we can bring the breath down into the diaphragm, into the belly. If it's helpful, you might place a hand on the belly as a little bit of a cue, a little bit of physical feedback. Beautiful. I'm going to try to even the breath. So inhaling for the same amount of time that we're exhaling. So I'll start us off with a little bit of counting if that helps. If it doesn't help, feel free to disregard. But we'll inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Continue counting on your own. And if you feel like the inhale can be extended, go ahead and extend it to 5 or 6 or 8. And extend the exhale. Stay with whatever count feels good. When you're ready on your exhale, you can release the breath. And if any point within our practice today you feel your mind wandering or you just want to kind of reconnect again, you can feel free to bring back that equal respiration, or even just a intention to notice the breath can be helpful. From here, we're going to enter our first restorative asana. And so we'll be coming into a reclined Baddha Konasana. So I want to give us a few options. If we're seated in a chair, we can rest our feet on the outer edges. We can grab blocks, books, pillows, blankets, place them beneath us, and rest our feet on the outer edges. If we have a chair, a second chair or ottoman in front of us, we can place the feet in front of us, like I'll demo on the floor, on the outer edge, maybe soles of the feet touching, knees apart, if that's comfortable. For the upper body, we'll find any position that feels good and recline back against the back of the object that we're resting on. If we are down on the mat, we again have a couple options. So if we like, we can bring our bolster right against the mat. If we don't like being reclined fully, we can also create our ramp, maybe with one block on this high position, one on the low, with our bolster or bed pillows against it to create the ramp. If you don't have blocks, no worries. You can grab an extra couple blankets or pillows, anything that'll prop the top half and create this kind of ramp shape. It doesn't have to be this high. It can be lower, just as long as you're comfortable. I'm going to come down today. I'm not going to use the ramp today for myself. You might also like blanket or pillows or blocks for support under the knees, which I will demo momentarily. So whether we're using our ramp or our bolster against the ground, we're going to bring our bum to the base of the bolster. We can have a blanket over us to keep the lower half warm. If we feel pulling through the inner line of the leg, we might place block or blanket or pillow beneath the knees on either side to prop the knees up. If we have a blanket, we might wrap it under the toes. It's kind of hold the feet together, wrap it beneath the knees, if that's something that feels helpful. So we've got lots of options. I'm going to go ahead and whenever we've got our lower half of the body set up, we'll begin to recline back. So I'm going to lean back here, laying directly against the bolster. If we like, we can also have a blanket underneath the head if that's comfortable. And we'll take a few deep breaths in this position, inviting openness into the body, inviting relaxation. Finding our natural breath or any breath that feels comfortable. Our hands can be our sides, they can be spread out if we want a bit more heart opening. And in this position, if it feels comfortable, we might begin to bring to mind a piece of art, a piece of music, a movie that makes us feel joy, or that allows us to feel joy, depending on how you want to think of it. So maybe our favorite song, our favorite painting, our favorite poem. It might be helpful to visualize the object in front of us, to imagine ourselves in its presence in some way. And we'll take a moment to really allow ourselves to notice this, or I should say, really recall this sensation of joy. And as we visualize or imagine, we might let our awareness kind of be activated in the body. We might notice if we are smiling. We might notice if we feel warmth or tightness or activation in any parts of the body. We might notice the breath. Does it quicken or slow? Do we feel the urge to move or sway? Do we want to laugh? Just explore what's happening in the body in the moment. We might slowly return to the breath, noticing the inhale and exhale. Taking stock of the whole body, not just the individual sensations, but maybe how the whole body feels after spending time with the memory or the sound in the head or the replay of the movie in the mind. We might start to take a little bit of movement in the body, maybe gently swaying from side to side. We might stretch the legs out. And then when we're ready, gently roll off to the right or left side. Then begin to press ourselves up to set up for our second posture. And for our second posture, we have a supported side lying stretch. So let me demo for the folks on the mat first, and then I'll demo for folks in the chair. So this might look a little different for everyone because our bodies are all different proportions. If if we like, I like to use the bolster, and it's going to go right under the natural waist. So kind of where it dips in on the side, if we dip in on the side. If we don't have much of a dip on the side, we might prefer to use a folded blanket in place of our bolster, just so that we can keep our spine nice and neutral. I also like to use something under the head. Now, you can use blankets, but because I have large arms, large legs, and I'm lifted pretty high off the mat on my side, I'm going to use my block. And I might even grab a blanket to put on top as well. And I like to keep a second blanket or a second block down near my legs so that I can adjust my legs. If I want to move my knee forward, I have something to rest it on. If you have a second bolster or a bunch of extra pillows, you can also put a pillow down here as well. So anything that works. I am going to recline on, I'm sorry, not recline, but lie on my side. And you can really start on either side because we're going to flip and do the other side as well. But I'm starting on my right side. So once I'm on my side, I'm kind of pulling my bolster into position. And because my bolster is wide, it's not just under my waist, but a bit under my ribs. That works okay for me, but you might need to adjust as you come down. Actually, I need to pull a little bit further down. There we go. And then I'm going to bring the support under my head so that my spine is neutral. That's a little high, so I'm going to grab a blanket. There we go. And this can take a few moments to find. We'll want the arms stretched out nice in front of us if that's comfy. We can have our arm along the length of the body and the legs stacked. Again, if we want to bring the leg forward, we can support the knee with the block or the lower half of the leg with the block like I'm doing here. Whatever's comfortable. And if we want, we can raise the opposite arm overhead. I'm going to leave mine along the body today, but if this feels comfortable and you want that stretch through the side body, feel free to go ahead and lift the arm. And take a few moments to really find the position in your body. Beautiful. Now, if we are on the mat, or I'm sorry, in a chair, we might grab a second chair and place it under the arm with maybe a pillow or blanket over top. We can do that and kind of rest against that, maybe with a rolled blanket around the neck for support. Sorry about that. Or we can turn in the chair so that our side body is supported by the back of the chair. Maybe again with the blanket around the neck to support the head and rest. This also gives us the option to stretch the legs out as much or as little as we like, depending on how much support we have under the legs. Hands can go against the body. They can go along the length of the body. If you have a pocket, this can be a nice place for it. You can rest against the thigh. We've got all sorts of options here. And we'll take a few deep breaths again, maybe in through the nose, out through the mouth. Releasing with a sigh. Finding all the little adjustments we need to make ourselves as comfortable as possible. Eventually settling into our breath. And as we settle, we might begin to bring to mind the image of someone who brings us joy. And this isn't a time to think about whether or not the person should bring you joy. We aren't bringing any kind of moralistic arguments in. We're just recalling someone who brings us joy. We might imagine ourselves in their presence. We can bring other senses into it, maybe recall the scent of the individual, the temperature of them near you, the sound of their voice. And we'll notice the reaction our body has. Does the heart rate quicken or slow? Do we feel warmth or tingling anywhere in the body? Does it have an effect on our breath? And we'll spend the next 3 minutes on this side. Just noticing the body's reaction. We might slowly return to the breath. If we're reclined, we might bring the hand in front of us against the mat and slowly begin to press up onto the shoulder. We can make our way onto the opposite side either by rolling over, or we can rebuild our props on the opposite side of the mat. If we're seated, we might again turn towards the opposite side, supporting ourselves with our arm or against the back of our seat. And then when we're ready, we might slowly make our way back down, remembering that we might need to adjust to accommodate our body on this side. We aren't perfectly symmetric, so make sure that we're supporting ourselves in whatever way we need on this side of the body as well. And again, we can continue to recall the same person or maybe a different person if more than one person brings us joy. And as we recall, maybe noticing if it's a different person, any differences. Not because we're trying to quantify more or less joy. It's more that joy expresses itself in different ways. And maybe this other person brings up a different type of joy in the body. And we'll be here for about 3 minutes. Thank you. We'll slowly return to the breath, noticing the inhale and exhale. We can bring the arm in front of us if we're on our on the mat and gently press up, taking our time. If we're in the chair, we can move any props we don't need out of the way. And we're going to set up for our last restorative posture before our Shavasana. And for this, I want to offer a folded posture. So this can be anything that we like. I'm going to demo a few options. If we're seated in the chair, we can use that second chair in front of us or a desk or table. But I'm going to start with a wide-legged forward fold because that's always my most favorite because it gives lots of space for the belly. But I can have my bolster upright in front of me. I can stack my blocks one on top of the other. Or we can create a ramp, or I'm sorry, a bit of a table with 2 blocks and a bolster or a few bed pillows, or we can just pile up everything in front of us. And whenever we've got kind of our setup, we'll begin to hinge forward at the hip and rest our forehead against the object or our cheek if we'd rather have the head turned. If we don't want to have a wide-legged position, we can also have the feet together, knees apart, or on either side of our bolster. Or if it's something that's accessible to us, we can have the legs straight ahead, pressed together with maybe bolster or a series of blankets piled on top of it, so that when we hinge forward, we still have support. So if we're in our chair, we can have our arms on the back of the second chair, on the seat of the second chair or ottoman, or we can even have our bolster or a few bed pillows stacked on top of an object in front of us so that we can, again, hinge forward and rest the head or cheek against the object. We might wrap our arms around our bolster and we'll take a few deep breaths here. Allowing ourselves to really rest against the support of the object in front of us, beneath us. And once we've found our position, we might recall the memory of an event, a time that brings us a great deal of joy. It might be yesterday, it might be half a century ago. We might imagine ourselves in that space again, in that moment again. Or we might just recall the experience, whatever is comfortable, whatever feels right. And as we let ourselves settle into the experience, again, we might notice any shifts that happen in the body, in the heart rate, in the breath, in the muscles. What do we recall? Where does this memory live in our body? What does it evoke? What does it invoke? And we'll be here for the next 3 to 4 minutes. And when we're ready, we'll return to the breath. Noticing the inhale and exhale. If we are comfortable in this position and we'd like to stay here for our final resting position, we can do so. Or we might press against the props or the floor, coming up to seated, and make our way into maybe Shavasana, again, lying against the mat with our bolster beneath the knees, or any other position that feels comfortable. In our chair, we might lean against the back of the chair, maybe with that blanket gently wrapped around the back of the neck so that we have support for the head. But we'll make our way into whatever resting position feels comfortable for us today. And once we're there, we might make any little adjustments, maybe cover ourselves with a blanket, use an eye pillow. And we'll revisit our grounding, noticing the inhale and exhale. Noticing the sensation of the mat, the props, the floor against the body. Allowing ourselves to be heavy, rested. And as we find our natural breath, we might begin to notice how the body's feeling in this moment. Notice if we feel supported. Notice any other emotions or sensations that have come up for us over the past 50 minutes or so. And once we notice them, we'll release that awareness. Just saying, hi, I see you, and then letting go. Allowing ourselves to stay in the present. Allowing ourselves to be observers more than participants in this moment. And I'd like to offer an affirmation. I welcome joy in whatever form it takes. I trust that it knows how to find me and that I know how to notice it. We'll spend the next few minutes resting in this space, allowing ourselves to be as we are. And if we're comfortable, we of course can stay where we are. But we might bring our attention back to the breath, noticing the inhale and exhale. We might start to introduce a bit of movement, maybe into the hands and feet, the head and neck. We can take any movements that make us a little bit more comfortable in this moment. And again, we can remain where we are, or we might gently roll off to the right or left side and slowly press our way up to a seated position. From wherever we are, we might bring the hands together, either at heart center or place them anywhere against the body that feels good. And we'll take 3 breaths together in a way that feels comfortable for us. We might take a moment to thank ourselves for making space for rest and for joy tonight. And I'd like to thank you so much for sharing your practice with me. Now, I mentioned this is part of a series, but it won't be sequential. It'll be one a month, looking at different emotions, emotional states. Next week, we'll be focusing on preparing for rest and a longer yoga nidra meditation as well. So maybe 1 or 2 restorative asana, and then we'll spend about 30 minutes in a yoga nidra meditation. So I look forward to seeing y'all next week. Thank you so much for being here. And I hope you have a wonderful evening and a wonderful week.